To understand the Old Firm, we have to zoom out beyond football and beyond Glasgow to look at Britain and Ireland at the end of the 19th and beginning of the 20th centuries. You see, Ireland was still under British rule at the time. The debate around Irish Home Rule and later full independence greatly intensified over the early years of the 1900s. The very idea of identity was becoming increasingly polarised across the British Isles. But nowhere outside of Ireland were these tensions more palpable than in Glasgow. But these conflicts were no longer merely cultural, they were becoming actively political. In 1912, the Third Home Rule Bill was introduced in Westminster, proposing limited self-government for Ireland while still remaining under British control. Across Britain, it sparked fierce debate between both Unionists and Irish Republicans. In Glasgow, these arguments echoed within the Old Firm matches. Support or opposition to Irish autonomy was in no way theoretical. Many families within the city still had direct ties to Ireland. The footballing rivalry had become a proxy arena for wider socio-political questions. Should Ireland govern itself? Which nation demands people's loyalty? And were Scottish and British identities inseparable from one another? Over time, the social and political tensions facing Britain on a wider scale helped to reinforce the identities of the Old Firm. Celtic supporters often identified with Irish nationalism. Irish tricolours, Republican songs, and references to events from across the Irish Sea became commonplace within matchday culture. Rangers supporters, meanwhile, became increasingly aligned to the ideals of British unionism, loyalty to the Crown, and Protestant heritage. Union Jacks and Orange Order symbols became visible markers of these identities. In fact, even today, if you were to go to an Old Firm derby, you'd be unlikely to find an abundance of Scottish symbology. Instead, a clash of Union Jacks and Irish flags would confront you wherever you turned. These weren't just preferences, however, they were declarations, and sometimes these identities collided violently. In 1980, after Celtic defeated Rangers in the Scottish Cup final at Hampden Park, thousands of fans filled the field. What followed was not celebration, but brutal fighting between rival fans. Bottles and fists were thrown, and running battles erupted across the turf before police on horseback eventually restored order. These images shocked Scotland. The riot became a defining landmark of just how combustible the Old Firm rivalry had become, and directly contributed to the banning of alcohol from Scottish football matches in 1981, a restriction that is still in place decades later. Now, it is important for us to be precise here. Neither club's entire support can be broken down into just religious or political affiliations. Modern Glasgow is far more complex and secular than that. But historically, these connections matter deeply. When Celtic and Rangers met, it wasn't just about football. It was about putting Scottish identity under a national microscope, disguised as a sporting spectacle.